Colart Miles is passionate about building beautiful businesses. He's a sought-after startup business advisor and Agile coach involved in accelerator programs and running workshops with some of the biggest enterprises in the country. Today, Colart is here at DI Day to share his advice to avoid the common traps and pitfalls found in the Agile workforce. Please welcome Colart.
So I had a chat with my little one. He's like 10. And I said, go into that room that we never use and go and fetch me the thing. So he goes off, he gives me a look, toddles off, comes back a little while later, says, here's the thing. I said, great. What did you notice while you were in the room? What did you see? And he went, I don't know. You told me to fetch the thing. Here's the thing. A couple of days later, I walked past the same room. We hardly ever use this room. And I found him in there. He was playing. I knew he'd been in there for about maybe 10 minutes or so. I popped my head in the door, said, hey, how you doing? He said, hey, Dad, having a great time, just playing. I said, cool. And he said, Dad, did you know that there's a spider living in that corner over there? Eh? And over there, that window is just slightly askew, and our painting isn't fitted right. And I was like, dang, that's pretty interesting. And I realized that I think he experienced that room in a wholly different way. You getting that? Can I see nods? You have to be generous with body language because I kind of feed off. Thank you very much. Cool. Kia ora tātou katoa. Ko rangitoto te moanga. Ko ochikoto te awa. No Africa ahau. Some surprised. No surprises. Te reo, not a lot in the room. Ko Miles toko whānau. Ko Colart toko ingoa. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Colart Miles, as the slide says, as Justin very kindly introduced. And I'm like super pleased to be here. I wondered if that story about my son sort of happens in our businesses. We send our people out into customers' rooms, that room that we hardly ever go into, and we say, go and fetch the thing, go and fetch me data insights, go and fetch me market insights, go and fetch me problems that are worth solving for them, go and fetch me things that I can do that will help shape our business and help us fit into their lives a bit better. Kia ora, Debra. All right, lots of nodding. And I just wondered if we could afford to spend a bit more time playing in that space and just kind of being there and experiencing the space for our customers a little bit better. So my topic today, I was very pleased to be invited to share a few traps and pitfalls of this thing we're calling Agile. We're all on a journey. I mean, I heard the panel a little bit before, and if that's anything like what you've been sitting through this morning, I've got massive FOMO. There were some real hot topics in there: mindfulness, how do we cross-connect our organizations, what's the learning journey look like when we're scaling this stuff and we're getting our organizations into a better learning mode, you know? So there's some really kind of meaty topics in there, am I right? You have to be more generous with yes, thank you. Cool, sending the nods, yeah. So we're all on a journey. I wanted to just sort of, in the spirit of data, hey? Can you give me a fist of 5? All right, on your journey, have you had enough of this today? You saw this, right? He saw the future. So on your journey in Agile, like number 1, like you give me a 1 if you are sort of curious, but you haven't started yet. You'd be like, cool, I've heard there's a lot of hype about it, and it's like, it's interesting, but it hasn't really entered my world a lot. Maybe a 5 is you're speaking at conferences, you've taken experimentation to its nth degree, you're really mature and you've got lots of wisdom to share, and you're helping everyone else out kind of on their journey. So that's a kind of fist of 5. Are we ready to go? Is that kind of clear? So you're just going to hold your hands up like this, and I'm going to count to 3, and you're going to give me a number. How agile are you? Where are you at in your journey? Go. Sweet. Lots of 3s, lots of 2s, lots of 1s. So we're quite a humble room, aren't we? We're very humble. I really love that because it's the attitude is I've got a lot to learn. You know, I'm kind of still curious. I might have had some experiences. That's really cool. I actually wondered, because I'm the after lunch speaker, have you had an Energizer yet? Because this is what Agile coaches do. I wondered if you could stand up, rise up, and turn to the person next to you, preferably someone you don't know, and just share with them why you said your number. Why did you give your number? Very quickly, go. All right, take a seat when you're done. Awesome. I love the energy. Gosh. Okay, cool. So thank you for that. I can't wait to find out a little bit later about what sort of conversations you had about where you're at. So I'm really here to share a couple of war stories, a couple of hopefully wisdom stories, and where I'm pitching it at, just because of the numbers you gave me, and I saw that awesome panel that you had up a little bit before. I think I'm going to pitch this at the kind of like, you've probably got some degree of exposure to it. It's entering your world in some way, and here are some patterns to look out for, okay? So I'm going to call them parables, because I love alliteration. Parables to ponder. So there's 3 parables I'm going to share today: cargo cults, underpants, and change. Who knows what underpants is all about? Cool. All right, so surprises on the horizon. First up, cargo cults. Has anyone heard of cargo cults before? Yep, I got hands up. And in the sort of agile coaching circles, it's a kind of concept that entered our world a little while ago when we were trying to diagnose kind of like a weird pattern that we see in the early stages of agile adoption. So hopefully you'll find this useful. It comes out of a case study that was done. Anthropologists started noting a certain kind of weird behavior that they found in Micronesia shortly after the Second World War. And they were like, whoa, there's this kind of weird cult-like behavior that's sort of sprouting up, and we wonder what that's all about. So they went and investigated, and they found out that local tribesmen on these islands had been exposed to massively advanced technology, airplanes. And, it was probably US air servicemen during the Pacific conflicts. And as they made their way around the islands, they would carve out airfields and they'd land planes and they'd use, kind of do the cargo thing. And what happened was the impression it left on the tribesmen was, wow, that looks interesting. The sky gods are giving them yields of these magical substances, these things called cargo. I wonder perhaps how we might attract the cargo. So it sprouted up these sort of belief systems that would say, and this is a classic, this is a documentary that was done by National Geographic of tribesmen, and this sprouted up in quite a large part of the region, where they would basically mimic what they saw. They'd build bamboo aeroplanes, they'd have the villagers basically sitting around watching the sky, and their goal was really to attract the cargo from the sky. So in our terms, it's like mimicking what you don't understand to get the benefits. Cargo culting. So it became a term that was really useful because we started to recognize this pattern in some of the teams and organizations that we work with, because very often, and just please don't laugh too much because you're staring at yourself in the mirror. This is us. This is our humanity at play here. This is actually often one of the first stages of learning, isn't it? It's imitating. It's taking something we see they're getting benefit from it, maybe we'll copy that, we can get the same benefit. Okay? And like many things with Agile and other complex concepts, it's worth going underneath and finding out the principles of why it works and exploring that sort of depth of knowledge to kind of start to get closer to the point where you're flying around and you're benefiting from having cargo. So there's a sort of word for you to use, cargo culting. Ask yourself, are we cargo culting? So panic not, all right? Even if you are, that's okay. That's usually like a stage of learning in my approach to this sort of thing. It's like, cool, recognize it. Know that you're there, and then move through it, right? And it's like, what did Winston Churchill once say? I'm pretty sure he was credited with it. When you're going through hell, best to keep going. All right, so that's my first parable. It's actually correlated quite strongly to the Dunning-Kruger effect. Hey, Dunning-Kruger, data, come on, data scientists, got a lot of nods in the room, thank you. And basically, it's a phenomena that's observed in people that we tend to rate ourselves more confident in something when we're in the early stages of our learning journey. So the less we know, the knowledge in our field, we actually overrate. We tend to systematically overrate. And this is everyone in the room, there are no exceptions. There are areas in your life where you are probably cargo culting, and that's okay. So that's one thing. XKCD, who loves XKCD? Can I get a hell yeah? Oh yeah, come on. Data insights, man. They had a better way of describing it. Okay, yeah. So, there's your pattern. That's your trap or your pitfall. How do you get out of that? Well, I think you probably know the answer better than I do. I'd say stay curious. Maybe that Alcoholics Anonymous 12-step program, realize that you've got a problem. Step one, and then kind of move your way out of that, And in a lot of places, we might even say, what's the kind of number one rule of getting yourself out of a hole? Stop digging. Anyway, so there's lots of different strategies to choose from. That's your first pitfall or trap that I'd like to share. Can I get a kind of nod if that resonates and if you can start to see maybe some of the patterns in your own environments, in your own organizations where we're kind of going through the motions, but we're not entirely understanding why we're doing it or getting the benefits from it? Yeah? Got a few nods going around. It's probably more there than you think. So the people that aren't nodding, go and look around. You'll probably find there are more areas that you might be inadvertently cargo culting, and it might be okay. So that's my first parable to share with you. Was that useful? Yes. Okay, cool. We'll find out later. My next one was underpants. Oh, weird. Well, underpants? Okay, and I think I heard a lot of it, actually, some of the patterns showing up, and it clicked for me. So South Park had this episode in like series 2 ages ago. It's a cartoon, toilet humor for kids, but I don't apologize for anything. And in the episode, one of the main characters, Kyle, is a little kid, wakes up in the middle of the night and he hears rummaging around in his room, and there's these little thieving gnomes, right, digging around in his drawer, and they're stealing underpants. And he's like, what the heck is going on there? And decides to follow them. And he gets down into their secret lair and finds that there's this global network of spy gnomes that are infiltrating kids' rooms all over the world, stockpiling underpants. All right? And they're pathological about stockpiling underpants. Anyway, he confronts one of them, and as the episode goes on, he confronts the gnome, and he's like, can you please tell me, why are you stockpiling all these underpants? What is it that's driving you? And he's like, must get underpants, must get underpants. We are the underpants gnomes. There's a whole song. There's lots of laughing here, because now it's dawning on you, that episode, and you're like, I can't believe he's bringing that to an Agile speech. So they obviously gave him a musical, because that's South Park, and the underpants gnomes, they all dance, and they kind of give him a musical, and they basically show him this formula and say, this is why we collect underpants. Step 1, or phase 1, is collect the underpants, and then phase 3 is profit. What about phase 2? It's like, we haven't figured that part out yet. All right, so that's my second trap for you. All right, and it kind of shows up, it's a sneaky one, all right? If you've got teams that have backlogs, and they build features, and they're doing stuff, recognize, well done, firstly, because you've got them off the disease of being busy, and now you've at least got them being a bit more productive, right? We've taken activity, and we're saying, what have we got to show for the activity? Let's get you up to the output level, right? But that's still a little bit like underpants. We're not quite at profit yet. We're not at value in the hands of a customer, are we? Right? So then that means if you're at that sort of stage and you've got a lot of underpants stuff going on, lots of features being fired at the market, and we're not really listening to what they want, and we're not taking that feedback, we're not visiting their room to kind of be in their space a little bit to understand what their world is really like, all right? You're in that underpants trap. Hear my little voice. It's the underpants gnomes. Maybe a way out of that. What's the strategy out of that? I think you're hearing a lot about that today. Get the insights, get a bit more entrepreneurial. I love that one suggestion over there. Learn to listen, learn to empathize, get out of the building, use that sort of lean startup framework and that sort of thing. That'll help you break some of the spell of underpants, because so much of what consumes our teams is the need to be busy and productive. But that doesn't mean that they're effective. So there you go. That's trap number 2. Underpants. Is that cool? Did that land? All right. I love it. Toot toot. So where are we going next? Right. So the next one. It turns out, do you know that whole nature versus nurture debate? Hey? So it turns out that nurture is somewhat stronger than nature. That it turns out that people, that there's this competed with the other debate on social media, by the way, the toilet paper over the top or toilet paper around the back. I don't know. I'm talking about the role on the actual thing. Anyway. Just figuring that out. So it turns out that nature versus nurture, right? So it turns out that we as humans are a process. We're not actually a fixed ball of matter that's born one way and will stay that way your whole life. Turns out that you are not the same person you were 10 years ago. Does that ring true? You've had experiences that shape you. You've had things that happen. So, we hear a lot of talk about the environments that we're creating for our workforces, the 21st century environments, and I love it when the concept of learning organization comes up. It's a really powerful and insightful place to be because it means that you're accepting that everyone can change. All right? Everyone's adaptable. Even those, in fact, actually, I had a really great insight from a HR friend of mine, somebody in the HR industry. I hate HR, actually, I should use the people and culture as a much better way to say that. One of the things she shared with me was, I get a lot of flack, and I hear a lot in our board meetings and our management meetings about, I don't know, that Agnes, she's been here for 25 years, she might not be up for the change, you know that old sort of narrative, and you kind of hear that story a lot. And she was like, do you know what? I've known Agnes's all my life. I've known Berts and those. They are the most adaptable people ever. I mean, what business stays the same, right? And they are the ones who have stuck it out and actually had to. They're forced to a change. So you could argue that through a certain kind of lens, that some of your longest running employees are actually they could teach us a few things about being adaptable, moving with a system, So anyway, so it turns out that nurture sort of outpowers nature. Not at first, but it actually in the long run it tends to outweigh. And I put a picture up of the Navy SEALs. They've got a mantra that rings true, and this is my third and final trap that I wanted to share with you. The third and final trap is that change is not the same as progress. That whilst change is constant, progress is not. Can I get a hell yeah for that? I'm seeing a lot of nods over here. And we're like, bing! Even the word data insight. Data, is maybe like akin to the change. It's not the same as progress. Maybe insight is the thing. Data, underpants, profit, insight, I don't know, something like that. I'm just jamming. So that's my third trap or pitfall to kind of share, a little parable to share. Change is definitely not the same as progress. And what are the strategies out of that? Cargo cults, stay curious, foster that curiosity in your teams, and you don't get curiosity if they don't feel safe. All right, so leaders, please create environments that are much safer to have the hard conversations. It doesn't mean being soft, and it doesn't mean not challenging. Most cultures grow and demonstrate really positive results when they're challenged in a constructive way. All right, so demonstrate your care. And call it out, like, step one is realizing there's a problem. Cargo culting. Underpants, just kind of don't fall into that trap of falling short of customer value. And even then, like, what's the game you're playing? What's the market position you want to take? It's like keeping all of that stuff connected into what's happening on the ground. I think there was a lady that I really loved some of the insights. I'm pretty sure it was Genesis, and she was suggesting that you can't apply this stuff generally. It's not a textbook answer. You have to take context into account. All right. So being really aware of where you're at and sifting through, knowing that actually underpants might be the path to get to something else. All right, so profit or outcome is better. And then, of course, change versus progress. It's a really awesome little mantra to kind of keep in the back of your mind. Is like there's two styles of leadership that can kind of show up in this. There's transactional leadership, which kind of gets in there, resolves the problem of the day, management by exception, you kind of into the thing. And then there's transformational leadership. It's one that's kind of keeping an eye on where do we actually want to be as an organization? Where do we want to be as a working culture? Cool. I think I'm rapidly approaching my time. Look, I've had a great time. Thank you very much for being such a great audience. This is an awesome kōrero, and I'm looking forward to connecting with you afterwards. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been awesome. Thank you very much.